Alright guys, so we are in the last chapter of where we're actually going to be learning things, and then we're moving into chapter 10, which has the final project for this course, which is the slot machine. So, what we are going to be looking at today is the import random library, and we're going to use that as kind of like a key mechanic piece for all of our code. So, you may know with dice, you roll dice and you get a random number. All right, and adding this randomness helps us make games more fun. If you didn't have a random aspect in a game like Monopoly, it would be kind of a weird, kind of technical procedure game, and that's not something that we really want to do with the game. We want it to have some unpredictable nature to it. And when it comes to our final project, we're going to be using a slot machine, which of course uses random pieces. All right, so randomness, as you saw on 6-sided die. All right, you may notice from Dungeons and Dragons there is something like a 20-sided die that you can use that people roll. We're going to be building emulators for all of these things. We're also going to be building things with decks of cards. So, you could take a deck of cards, shuffle them up, and then go through them and say, pick a random card. How about the Queen of Diamonds? All right. So it could be a random thing like that where you want to just kind of pick something without really knowing what the outcome will be, or you want to set up an environment like that. So we're going to learn 3 different things within this import random library. There's a lot more, but again, we're taking the introductory pieces of this. So just like our turtle graphics, we have to import the system. So I'm going to say import random, and this is already built in. We don't have to install any other features or anything into it. It's already built into the base core system of Python. All right, so import random, and then what we can do is we can do 3 different things. We can make a random choice, we can make a random integer, and we can make a random shuffling of a group of data, which we just learned in chapter 8. All right, so let us first tackle the random choice, because that's usually one of the easier ones to do. So before I can get that set up, I need to have kind of like a group of data that I can work with. So why don't we do something simple? Why don't we make a list, names equals Alice, Bob, Charles, and Dan. All right, so now I have 4 different items. Just to make sure that this works, I'm going to print names, and I'm going to run it. Sometimes I like to set up my environments and just do a little bit of a test. It also serves as like a nice little reminder of this. All right, and it prints the whole list of the names that we want. But I want to randomly choose one person. So why don't we pretend this is kind of like a magic show, because it just kind of showed you a little bit of a magic trick. It was really lame, but it still works. Yeah, so why don't we say I need a volunteer from the audience. So volunteer, that's my variable name, equals random.choice of names. So when I say random.choice, it's kind of like turtle.up, right? We import turtle, or we import random for this, and then we say that library name dot, and then we want to do the action that's attached to it. So this should kind of be like connecting puzzle pieces from previous things that we've learned. And names is the name of this group, or this list of all the different people on here. All right, now if I run it right now, nothing really is going to happen. What I need to do is print volunteer. All right, and I'm also going to get rid of this because I don't want that showing up each time. So now I have my whole group of people in the quote-unquote audience that I'm going to choose from. So I made a new variable, volunteer equals random.choice of the names list, and then I'm going to print whatever that volunteer variable takes. Let's run it. All right, there's a possibility that you did not get the same answer as me because Python is behaving randomly. So I first got Dan, then I got Charles. Let's try running it again. All right, I got Charles again, and I can keep running this until I'm just getting Dan and Charles. That's kind of weird, but hey, that's kind of something that happens. There we go, there's Alice. I wonder how many times I would need to run this before I got Bob. Oh wow, 3 Alices in a row. So yeah, I mean, this is to happen. If you do random things, you're going to get random results. There we go, we finally got all 4 of them. That took a while. But anyway, that's the first piece, the random choice. All right, you just say random.choice of the names. If you didn't want to deal with a variable being assigned to it, that's okay as well. You can just print random.choice of names. All right, and now, same thing, except I don't have a variable to work with later on, which again is not the worst thing that we are trying to deal with. All right, so that's the first part, random.choice. So let's get rid of that. All right, this next piece, we're going to be dealing with integers. So really, we don't need these names right now because none of those are integers. So we're just going to knock it out so it just doesn't work as code. Actually, to make it easier, I'm just going to cut it so I can paste it later. I want to show you the process of doing integers next because Alice, Bob, Charles, and Dan are not integers. Those are strings because those are text-based items. But if I want to make an integer, well, I can make a variable name equal to it just like I did before, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to say x equals random dot, again, we're calling this library, this random procedure, random dot rand int. I think you could probably guess what those mean, right? Rand int, random integer, between, and I can put any like range of numbers. I could say 5, 10 would give me a random number between 5 and 10. That's kind of a weird thing to choose. So I'm just going to do 1, 10. All right. So now x will take the value of a random integer chosen between 1 and 10. So if I print x, let's see what happens when we get that. Run, save. I got a 3, okay? And I can go back and run it. Got a 1, 10, and every time I run this, I'm going to get a random number. Could I get the same number 30 times in a row? It's possible, but it's very unlikely. And what's cool is now you have the tools to build things that randomly help you decide on things. If you have to make a decision in life and you don't have a coin to flip or something else like that, you can code your own tools that take care of these things for you. All right? And again, just like the previous one, we really don't need that x in there. We can just push it all into a print statement. Again, that could be kind of an issue because, well, not really an issue, but more of like a restriction if you put the random.randint inside of your print statement. But hey, it still works. All right. So that's the integers. Integers are pretty easy as well. I'm gonna, I copied that. So let's remake names equals Alice, Bob, Charles, and Dan. All right. And I'm going to get rid of that because we have our last piece that we need to work with, which is shuffling a group of data. So what I can say is random.shuffle names. And then I'm going to print names afterwards. So what I'm doing here is random.shuffle. Notice how there's no variable attached to it. There's nothing like that. This is actually a command that can take a list or a group of data and shuffle it, and then we can print out names and see the order and how it has changed. So now it's Dan, Alice, Charles, and Bob. If I run it again, Dan, Bob, Alice, Charles. All right, Dan, Alice, Bob, Charles. So it seems like we're getting some pretty good break aparts in each of these. Charles, Alice, Dan, Bob. A lot of Dan showing up in the front, which is kind of weird. But yeah, anyway, that's how the random library works, right? We can import random, and then we can start doing each of those 3 things that we learned, okay? So now let's talk about the assignment, or what I'm expecting from you on this. You're going to be making me a bunch of different tools, and I actually showed you all of them already. So let's say this is the assignment. You are going to make the following tools. All right, the first thing I want you to make, just to do something really, really easy, is a 6-sided die. All right. I think you know how to do that. You saw me make a random number between 1 and 10, so I'm pretty sure that a 6-sided die could be created from that. All right. The next thing I want you to work on is to find a coin flip. All right. So what I would do with this is I would make a list of heads and tails on here, right? Because then you could randomly choose from there. Notice how each of these are choosing if you want to do random integer, random choice, or random shuffle. All right. So the next one that we want to do is we're going to do a little thing from Dungeons and Dragons. You're going to make a D20. That's a 20-sided die. However, this is going to have a couple rules to it. If you roll a 20, what you want to do is print critical hit. So let me also put in, when you roll a 1, you're going to print critical fail. All right. The reason why we do this, or why I'm having you piece this together, is in Dungeons and Dragons. That's in like kind of like that nerdy game where they play with the books and all the magic and the medieval quests and all that other fancy stuff. They roll these 20-sided dice to kind of do things. And on this one specifically, there's a symbol on the 20 mark. But what you're supposed to do is take it, you're supposed to roll it, and whatever it rolls on is supposed to either help good things happen during your quest or your game, or bad things happen, and it adds an element of chance to it. In Dungeons and Dragons, when you roll a 20, you're supposed to get something called a critical hit, which means that like something really good is supposed to happen. Like, you know, it's 1 out of 20 chance of happening, so something really cool and miraculous is supposed to happen to help you in the game. All right, on the other side, if you happen to roll a 1, something bad is supposed to happen because your character is supposed to fail to some degree on that because you rolled something that's really difficult to do. All right? So on there, you're going to have the code run, and the D20, when it's rolled, if a 20 is rolled, notice I use the word if, that's a huge hint. If the outcome is a 20, you're going to print critical hit. You also want to display what the rolled die value was. All right? And same thing with the 1. Okay? Other ones that you want to look at is a random card from a deck of 52 cards. All right, so again, we have this deck of cards, so, you know, we can shuffle it however we like. All right, and then you tell me to randomly pick a card, and then all of a sudden, boom, stop right there. I don't know, King of Spades, boom. So what you want to do is make sure that you have that, you know, so you randomly get a card, you can shuffle it and reveal the top card. You could do a random choice. You could really even do a random integer from 0 to 51 and then match them to all the cards inside of a list that holds all the deck of cards. Or what I've seen other people do in the past is they don't even build a deck of cards and randomly choose. They randomly choose a value from ace through king, and then they randomly choose one of the 4 suits. I don't care how you do it, I just care that you get there. All right? And then finally, the last one. This is actually one of my favorite ones. In Monopoly, you roll 2 dice. Now, what happens if I were to roll this? 3 and 3. In Monopoly, you get to roll again. So you roll the dice. Within this, you're going to make 2 6-sided die. Then you're going to roll them. If the dice have the same value, like if the first die is 1 and the second die is 1, you're going to print a statement that says roll again. You do that for 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 5 and 5, or 6 and 6. Or, if you're really clever, you'll figure out a way to do it without having to worry about checking for all possible combinations. All right, so that's Monopoly dice with doubles indicator. Why don't we call it that? So these are the things that you need to do or accomplish on here, okay? What I'm going to do, because I have one more expectation for you, is that you put each of these tools into a loop, meaning that it keeps going continuously. All right, so we're going to go back to that 10-sided die. So I'm just going to cut that. All right, I want to make a 10-sided die with re-rolling. And why don't I put it, if a 7 is rolled, I'm going to say lucky, just because I want to like show you some examples of how this works so you can get some ideas. So the first thing that I need to do, all right, is I want to make a loop. So why don't I say rolling dice equals true. So I'm going to, not trues, true. There we go, that's the word. And then I'm going to make my while loop, while rolling dice equals, not true. I don't know why I keep writing trues. While the rolling the dice is true, I'm going to say, well, how about D for dice? D equals random dot rand int 1 comma 10. And then I'm going to print the variable D. All right, let me just give myself a little bit more space. And again, don't tackle the whole assignment at once. Do baby steps. I just want a 10-sided die with re-rolling. So let me try running this. Run, okay. Whoop. Now, what happened here? It's going and going and going and going, right? It's in a loop, so all it's doing is just cranking them out. So what I want to do, I'm going to use a little bit of a trickery that I've learned with input statements. Input statements aren't only used for typing in data, they're also used for breaking up a loop. So what I can do is I can say, Let's say roll equals input, press enter to roll the dice, or the die. Okay, so now when I run this, notice how an input statement shows up immediately. Press enter to roll the die. And then I press enter, and then we repeat back to that. So I've kind of paused the process of building, or like the dice being rolled. It beats having it run thousands and thousands of times per second. And every time I run this, I get a random number between 1 and 10. All right, so the last thing that I really need to do is determine if a 7 is rolled. I'm going to say lucky. So how would we do that? Well, I'm going to say if D, because that's the value of the die that I'm rolling, right? Because that's the thing that takes the random value from 1 to 10, and then I print it. If D equals 7 with no quotes, because remember, this is an integer, all right? If D equals 7, colon, I'm going to print lucky. That's pretty much it. So let's try running this. Let's roll the dice a few times until we get lucky. Press enter. Oh, there we go, first time. I guess I was lucky. But every time I run it now, I only get that lucky response when a 7 is rolled. Okay? So that is all of the help or support I'm going to give you for this. This should be a relatively easy thing for you to accomplish if you've been following everything and things have been going smoothly. If you get stuck, reach out to me. Leave comments in the YouTube video, ask me in person, find my email, figure out a way to get some help from me, because this is one of the cooler things that we can build into our code, and it'll really give us a way to, build randomness or unpredictability into our system. Because in the next chapter, we are tackling, we're tackling the whole slot machine, the whole thing. I'm not really giving you too much hints or help with it. I'm going to break it down into 10 steps, and I'm going to show you what the results should look like. You're not going to get any code from me on that. So please make sure that up to this point, if you're stuck or confused with anything, you ask for help. I will be looking at YouTube comments. I respond to them as fast as possible. Ask me in person, email me, find a way to reach out, because I am here to help. I want to get you to a comfortable level as an entry-level programmer so that you can keep moving on to bigger and bigger stepping stones and be very successful with it. All right, so with that in mind, remember, just a quick summary, we got those 3 different things. All right, we have random choice, we have random integer, and we have the shuffle mechanic. Doesn't matter how you use them, as long as you get it to successfully follow through. All right, so best of luck, enjoy. We're going to tackle a couple of problems or assignments or mini projects using this random library, and then we're diving right into that slot machine. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.